Imagine a force that has stood still while empires rose and fell. It has watched in silence as oceans shifted their boundaries, as the stars migrated across the heavens, and while humanity, in its restless, chaotic journey, forgot the very truth of its own origin. On the jagged, wind-swept edge of the Sahara Desert, the Great Pyramid of Giza looms. It is not just a monument of stone. It is a massive geometric anomaly that defies every law of primitive logic we have been taught to believe. For centuries, we have been told a comfortable story. We are told this is a tomb, a grand, oversized headstone built for a pharaoh named Khufu over 4,000 years ago. We are told it was a project of vanity, fueled by thousands of slaves and primitive copper tools. But the stones tell a different story. They speak of a technology we are only now beginning to decode, and a level of mathematical precision that simply should not exist in the Bronze Age. Today, we strip away the myths. We look past the textbooks and the dust of academia to investigate the greatest machine ever built, and the greatest mystery on Earth. To understand the mystery, we must first confront the sheer scale of the impossible. The Great Pyramid is composed of over 2,300,000 individual stone blocks. Some weigh 2 tons. Others, buried deep in the heart of the structure, weigh as much as 80 tons. To put that in perspective, 80 tons is the weight of 2 fully loaded semi-trucks. Conventional history claims these massive blocks were quarried, shaped, and dragged on wooden sleds over wet sand. But let's look at the math the experts often ignore. To complete this structure in a single 20-year reign, the builders would have had to perfectly quarry, transport, and place one giant block every 2 minutes. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for 2 solid decades. That is 1 block every 120 seconds. Even with our modern cranes, hydraulic systems, and GPS-guided logistics, this would be a nightmare that would challenge the world's greatest engineering firms. Furthermore, the Egyptians of the 4th dynasty supposedly possessed no wheel, no iron, and no pulley systems. They worked with copper, a metal so soft it dulls and bends after just a few strikes against limestone. So, we must ask the question that mainstream history avoids. How did they cut granite, one of the hardest rocks on the planet, with the precision of a laser? When you look at the joints between these stones today, after thousands of years of earthquakes and erosion, they are still so tight that a human hair or a thin razor blade cannot fit between them. This isn't just construction. This is high-precision manufacturing on a megalithic scale. It suggests a toolkit that was lost to time long before the first pharaoh ever sat on a throne. The pyramid is not just a building. It is a mathematical encyclopedia frozen in stone. It is as if the builders were trying to communicate with us across the ages using the only universal language there is: mathematics. If you take the perimeter of the base and divide it by twice its height, you get the value of pi. If you take the height and multiply it by 1 billion, you get the approximate distance between the Earth and the Sun. Skeptics call these coincidences. They say if you look at enough numbers, you can find anything. But the coincidences don't stop there. The dimensions of the pyramid are a perfect 1 to 43,200 scale model of the northern hemisphere of our planet. The height represents the polar radius. The perimeter represents the equatorial circumference. Why that specific number? Why 43,200? Because that number is a multiple of 72, the exact number of years it takes for the Earth to wobble just 1 degree on its axis, a phenomenon known as the precession of the equinoxes. The builders didn't just know the Earth was round. They knew its exact dimensions, its orbital mechanics, and its slow celestial wobble through space thousands of years before the so-called scientific revolution. They were recording the dimensions of the Earth into the very bedrock of Giza. Ancient architecture is almost always aligned with the heavens, but Giza takes it to a level of obsession that borders on the supernatural. The Great Pyramid is aligned to true north with an error of only 3/60ths of a degree. To understand how incredible that is, realize that this is an alignment more accurate than the Meridian building at the Greenwich Observatory in London. But the real mystery lies in the stars above. In the 1980s, research revealed that the 3 pyramids of Giza mirror the 3 stars of Orion's belt. However, due to the Earth's wobble, the alignment isn't a perfect match for the year 2500 BCE, when Khufu was supposed to be reigning. It is, however, a perfect match for the sky as it looked in 10,450 BCE. Is it possible the layout of Giza was designed by a civilization 10,000 years older than we are told? Are these pyramids markers of a lost epoch? A time stamp left in the sand to tell us when this story truly began? Were the Egyptians merely the second-hand users of a site that was already ancient when they arrived? If it isn't a tomb, and remember, no mummy, no funeral remains, and no burial treasure has ever been found within these walls, then what was it? Engineers look at the Great Pyramid and they don't see a grave. They see a machine. They see a sophisticated energy system. The king's chamber is built entirely of red granite, which is rich in quartz crystals. Quartz is piezoelectric, meaning it generates a physical electric charge when it is put under immense mechanical pressure. Beneath the pyramid, there are ancient, carved underground water channels that once drew from the Nile. Scientists have proposed that the structure acted as a coupled oscillator, drawing the rhythmic seismic energy from the Earth itself and converting it into a form of power. Chemical residues found in the internal shafts, traces of zinc chloride and hydrochloric acid, suggest the production of hydrogen gas. Was the Great Pyramid the world's first wireless power plant, pulling energy from the very vibrations of the planet and the chemical reactions within its chambers? In 2017, modern science finally pierced the stone without a single chisel. A project called ScanPyramids used cosmic ray muon tomography, a process that uses subatomic particles from space to X-ray the massive structure. They discovered a massive, hidden void at least 30 meters long, sitting directly above the Grand Gallery. This big void has no known entrance. No shafts lead to it. It has remained sealed and silent for millennia. What lies inside? Some believe it contains the forgotten machinery or the resonant chambers that allowed the pyramid to function as a plant. Others believe it houses the Hall of Records, the lost knowledge of a civilization that existed before the Great Flood. Despite our satellites, our AI, and our advanced sensors, we are still standing at the doorstep of this structure, unable to see what truly lies within its heart. What if we consider the casing stones? Originally, the Great Pyramid didn't look like the weathered brown structure we see today. It was covered in 115,000 highly polished, white Tura limestone casing stones. It would have shone like a star in the middle of the desert, visible for hundreds of miles. These stones were fitted with a tolerance of less than 1/50th of an inch. But they weren't just for decoration. Some researchers believe these stones acted as a protective shield, or an insulating layer for the energy reactions happening inside. When we look at the internal design, the Grand Gallery, the relieving chambers, the precise angles of the passages, we see something that resembles a waveguide or an acoustic amplifier. If the builders wanted to build a tomb, why choose a design that perfectly mirrors the requirements of a high-frequency acoustic resonator? Every detail, from the material choice to the mathematical ratios, points away from death and toward energy. As we conclude our journey, we are left with a choice. We can believe the comfortable, safe story that the Great Pyramid is merely a pile of rocks built by a primitive culture to satisfy the ego of a dead king. Or we can accept the evidence of our own eyes and our own logic. The Great Pyramid is a message written in the universal language of mathematics and geometry. It tells us that we are a species with amnesia. We have forgotten a time when humanity was capable of feats we can barely imagine today. We have forgotten a golden age of science that existed before the dawn of recorded history. The pyramid stands as a bridge between the stars and the earth, between our forgotten past and our uncertain future. It is a silent witness to a truth that is waiting to be rediscovered. As these stones continue to stand against the winds of time, they remind us that the greatest mysteries are not found in books, but in the shadows of the world we think we know. The machine is still there. The code is still waiting. The question is, are we finally ready to listen? Thank you for joining us on this investigation. If you are ready to uncover the hidden history of our world, stay connected.